Hey, welcome back to another live stream, questions and answers, all about piercings. I'm your host here. My name is Scott Wilkinson, and I'm a professional piercer and have been since 1994. And right on the other side of me is Jared. Say hi.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing today?
So, excellent. Now, what we're going to be doing is taking in a bunch of questions. Remember, try to be as thorough with your questions as you possibly can be. The more thorough you are, the better we are to answer these questions. So, Jared, how was your week?
Pretty good. Having fun this week. Are you doing good?
Yeah, I've been doing a bunch of crazy piercings here. It's been super fun. Had a couple fans come in and get pierced here, so it's been a good week.
Very cool. Always nice to meet the crowd.
But let's get started. Let's jump into these questions.
All right. Wilson came in first with a question. Looking to put a circular barbell in a 5/8 inch or a 5/8 of an inch nipple piercing. Would you recommend going up to a 3/4?
Maybe even a little bit more. If you're wearing a full 5/8 inch bar, the general rule of thumb, which works the best, is 1/3 of the ring inside and 2/3 showing. So you might even need to go up to a 3/4 if it pinches too much. So keep that in mind. If it pinches too much, you're going to get those little, basically bumps on the side of your piercing. They're tough to get rid of. So the right size bar is essential on this one.
So you do recommend upsizing that ring?
Yes. You don't wear you wear a larger ring than you do the length of the bar on the barbell. So great questions. Thanks for starting us off right here.
Excellent. Fallon wants to know, can I get multiple ear piercings in one sitting, and will it take longer to heal than just one piercing?
Yes, you can get multiple piercings in one sitting. Yes, it will take longer and shorter at the same time. Even if it added an extra month or two for healing multiple piercings, it sure beats them healing individually, each one at a time. Because even if it took maybe a year instead of the 6 to 8 months for something to heal, it sure beats doing it 6 to 8 months 3 times or 2 times in a row. So, yeah, it definitely works better. Just it's going to take a little longer, so stay healthy, keep cleaning it, and you'll heal that up.
Fallon also asked if we do minors and what piercing should I get. Unfortunately, we can't really because there's like a parental permission. You know, we're putting you in a video and we didn't talk to your parents. So right now we try to only do people 18 plus for the way we're doing it right now.
Yes.
Hello to Violetta Bug. Good to see you here. Marta says, hey, Scott and Jared, how's your day going?
We're doing great.
I'm doing great, too. Marta is planning on coming to Vegas later in the year to get pierced by you, Scott.
Sweet.
The question is can we get a septum clicker immediately after getting the septum pierced? Can we go straight to that clicker? We were just talking about this.
We are, because I'm planning on making a video on that, so stay tuned for the full-length video, but the quick answer is no. Start with a normal ring with beads and then change to the clicker once you're healed up.
No reason not to let her know. What is the problem with a clicker that would cause us to not want to use it?
Okay. A seam or the gap will get inside your piercing. Your skin can close up on it. Now, when you're looking for a new piercing, with a fresh piercing, you're looking for a high polish. Well, you have the high polish here, but if you have a big seam or a gap that constantly gets pulled through, that's a problem. That's why we're looking for a fully smooth surface to heal it up. Then once it's healed, then you can get into a little bit more.
And your body will put up with that once it's already healed that fistula. Very cool. Good question, Marta. Loving your Helix plugs, by the way. She likes that red.
Thank you. Yeah, we got silicone ones up here. These are so comfortable to sleep in. I love silicone plugs for a heel piercing, not for a stretched one. But thank you.
Greetings from Terry, Maximum Effort. Good afternoon from the UK. We are both doing well. Good to see you, Terry. Lena in a trench coat says, hi, my tragus has been infected, for a month and has a piercing bump. I'm using sea salt and it seems to get a little better. Any other tips? And what do you think about no-pull discs?
I'm a pretty big fan of the no-pull discs. It kind of depends on why you have the bump. Now, is it really infected or is it just an irritation bump? Now, if you have an infection, you're probably going to want to go see a doctor for something like that. If it's radiating a lot of heat and you constantly got discharge, like a pus coming out of there, not normal crusties, but if it's thicker yellow and kind of grayish or green, that's generally a sign of a problem. You want to talk to a doctor. Now, if you just have a bump, these are real common. A lot of times it's from wearing earphones, sleeping on it, mask getting caught on there. There's a lot of variables, but make sure that you're mixing your salt water exactly perfect. If you're just guessing, that could be part of the problem. It has to be non-iodized, fine-grained sea salt, and you want to use filtered or distilled water when you're mixing this. And 1/4 of a teaspoon per 8 ounces of water. Has to be exact. Otherwise, just go buy the pre-mixed wound wash spray you can buy at most pharmacies. That's generally the best way to go about this one. The no-pull disc will put pressure on that bump and kind of get rid of it. But if you're constantly irritating it, the bump won't go away. So get rid of the source of the problem. And if the bump doesn't go away, then use the no-pull disc.
Excellent.
Yes.
April McGarry wants to know what your opinion is on bridge piercings.
I like them. They're great piercings. I'm actually considering getting the second one. It's a super anatomy dependent piercing, so make sure you go to a qualified piercer to have this done. If you just because you can lift the skin out doesn't mean you can get the piercing. If the bar is resting right up against your bone, you will get bone erosion, skull erosion. Super dangerous if it's not done properly.
All right, another question. I just got my tragus pierced about a week ago, and I can't get the blood off the back of it. Any recommendations? I don't want to mess with it too much and irritate it.
Good. I'm glad you're not messing with it and irritating. You can't get the blood off the
inside. Yeah, probably crusties, like blood-colored crusties.
Best thing I can say is like maybe take like a Dixie cup or some sort of cup where you can put some warm water in there and just soak your ear in there for like 5 to 10 minutes. And that should soften up any of the crusties or stuff that would be on there. And then take like a paper towel, roll it up into a point like you would use a Q-tip. But don't use a Q-tip because the cotton's just going to kind of get loose and stuck on there. And you should be able to gently wipe it off if that's the case. If it doesn't just wipe off, maybe soak it another 5 or 10 minutes and that should get it off. If it's continually bleeding at this point, that's why the blood might still be there. So that's a possibility. If it's still bleeding, you got to ask yourself, why would it still be bleeding?
There could be some further irritation.
Yeah.
And when you say Dixie cup, that's a brand name from America here. You mean like a small paper cup, some sort of small
paper disposable cup? Yeah,
something you can bend a little bit and make it shape your ear.
Exactly. Because I mean, think about it. You're putting an open wound inside a cup here, and then you're gonna be drinking from it later. You probably just want to throw that thing away.
Use a disposable cup.
Disposable cup. Thank you for the correction. You're absolutely
right.
I
was trying to make sure everyone understands because you learn a lot as you start to talk to people from all over the world about things you take for granted. They don't know what you mean necessarily.
Is a Q-tip a worldly thing?
Maybe not. Maybe you should say
for those who watch from other countries, do you guys know what a Q-tip is? Let us know. I'm trying to
question. Yeah, a cotton swab.
A cotton swab is what we're supposed to say.
A stick with cotton rolled up on the
like
ends.
Kleenex.
What do you guys call
tissue,
that?
Yeah.
All right. Bethany Roberts says, hey, from the UK. And of course, I just lost my spot. There we go. I'm back. I've had my tragus for about 7 weeks. When can I change it to a shorter bar? Because I'd like to change it to a non-threaded because the ball keeps coming loose. So we're having a hard time keeping the ball threaded on. We want to switch that up. How soon?
It kind of depends on your piercer, how comfortable they are, and how your piercing's doing. A lot of times cartilage piercings stay swollen most of the healing process. But if the bar's way extra long and you're probably a couple months in, you could get it downsized if it is causing an issue that way. So I would say 2 months minimum. If you could wait 3 months, that's best. But again, you don't want to be losing your jewelry. If that bead's coming off every day, get it changed out.
Now, another way to attack the problem, say that her piercer tells her she does have to wait another month or two. Is there any tricks you know that'll keep that ball threaded on? What can she do to not lose that?
Jared.
It's my job, dude.
Yes. So there is a little trick that you can use, and it's adding toothpaste to your threads. Okay, take a toothpick and just the smallest dab of toothpaste and wipe it on the threads of your jewelry. And when you screw that in, that might kind of dry it and seal it in a lot better. It's not a permanent seal, but it'll keep it in a lot tighter for you. Thanks, Jared.
No problem. So hopefully that works for you, Beth.
Should have had that one.
It's all right, man.
It's teamwork.
Teamwork. All right. Christopher J says, I got my ears pierced at a 4 gauge and then immediately stretched to a 00. I noticed you told your guy to stretch up in a month. Do I need to do that? Okay. How long for it to heal?
How long did you get this done?
We don't have a time.
It doesn't say. Okay. A lot of times after about a month at a large gauge earlobe stretching like that or piercing stretch, your jewelry is going to be so loose it almost falls out. Literally, you're going to have those flares on there, and it's like there's no way, but you'll bend over and the jewelry will fall out. Then you almost need to go to the next size. That's what I'm talking about. It's not like you have to stretch it to the next size. It's your ear naturally stretches, and you have to go to a larger size just to keep jewelry in. That's what I'm talking about. So if it doesn't fall out and it doesn't seem like you have to do it, you don't have to, but a lot of times it does. Happy healing. Typically, probably a month to 2 months, you're going to seem pretty well healed up. Crusties last almost a full 2 months. If you're over swelling then it can take a little bit longer, but typically a couple months and you're done.
Should I change my still healing doth from a curved barbell to a hoop? And could that change cause it to grow out or reject?
I don't think it would cause it to reject or grow out as long as you had the appropriate size jewelry in there. Depends on how far along in the healing process. Generally, like 3 or 4 months minimum would be the earliest I would change something like that out. And it depends on how it heals. If it healed where the bar is like curved in so you can't ever see the beads, and then you're putting a ring in there, it's going to completely change the angle and it's going to make it really, really difficult to wear and heal unless that swelling's gone completely down. So it's kind of a tricky situation. I would have to see your ear to give you a true answer. But you have to wait till that swelling's gone down. That's the best answer.
All right. Fen wants to know if you have any tips or suggestions for people that want to stretch their septum piercings, because there's not very much information out there about stretching septum.
Absolutely. Bungee cords and you stretch.
You can't lie to these kids.
Septum piercing, if you wait long enough, the new jewelry almost falls into place. Once you get to a larger size, like maybe a 4 gauge or 2 gauge, you're definitely going to need some assistance with like maybe a taper, have a piercer help you out. But once you've been wearing jewelry, like if you're wearing a ring in there for maybe a month or even a couple months, you're going to notice how it just moves real freely and easily. If you grab the next size jewelry while you're in the shower, take that one out, see if the new one just slides right in. And that's how the stretching goes. It's going to be loose enough where it should fall right into place. Now, if your piercing was initially done and it was really painful and they went through all the cartilage, that's a tougher stretch and you might need some assistance. It's going to be a little bit more painful. But if it's pierced properly, they naturally stretch on their own.
So I think that's a common misconception. I feel like a lot of people feel like a stretch is like a painful instant thing that we do like all at once and endure. You're saying that it's not. It should be like a slow, steady.
Most cases, it's not that painful. A piercing when you stretch is going to be tight, but it shouldn't ever hurt because we're not ripping or tearing tissue. You're just stretching out, making it a little tight. It's like putting a tight pair of pants on. It shouldn't hurt. If it does, good luck getting them off. But yeah, that's kind of the situation. It should just feel like pressure more than anything and shouldn't hurt. If it hurts, you overdid it. There's a couple piercings like nipple piercings where if you're stretching them, it's probably going to hurt a little tiny bit more. Some cartilage piercings hurt a little bit more to stretch too, but in general, they're not that bad.
Damani has an interesting question that I think is actually more common than people realize.
Okay.
I have nipple rings, and every time I squeeze them, fluid comes out. And they wish to get it re-pierced later a little further up, but they're wondering, like, what's coming out there? Is that just oil? Is that normal?
A lot of times there's just different glands in there. Sometimes it's plasma, like your body's still secreting things out of there. It just has a lot of natural lymph that's going to come out of there as well. So there's a bunch of different things. I'm assuming you're talking out of the actual piercing hole. Crusties happen for a year to 2 years before they completely go away. Sometimes I've seen even a little bit longer, but a year to 2 years before that stuff completely goes. Now, if you're squeezing, you can actually get pus out of there. That's not 100% normal. So if it's a thick discharge and you're getting stuff out of there, something needs to be cleaned out. That's dead skin cells mixed with plasma. So, but in general, crusties last a long time. And that's all it is, a mixture of a bunch of different fluids and stuff.
April wants to know how many lobe piercings can go on one ear. Is there a maximum, or is that just based on what your ear looks like and how much space is there?
Depends on how you want to look at it. Sometimes, like, bring out the big ear. When you're looking at an ear like this, you could do like point, start with the normal and kind of start working your way on up. Some people have more room here, some people have less. There's also room to do stacking where you can do up and down, all the way across like this, and that would almost double your ability to get more. You could triple stack if you planned it out and you want to do 9 in this area. You could probably do that. You have to plan ahead, but that's how that works. Some people can get like 4 or 5. Some people can only get like 2 or 3 in a normal single line position.
Katsatoni has an interesting question. Can I stretch my lobes with attached earlobes? So some people have like the hanging lobes. Some people took to their head. Does that change your ability to stretch or not really?
A little bit, and it also gives the look of a detached lobe. because you're pushing that ear away. And for the people who don't know, it's like when your ear, like my ear looks like it's fully attached here. It was actually removed, but you can see how it goes flat to ear, and some people have that part that droops down. That's what we're talking about, is when they're attached. Once you pierce an attached lobe and stretch, it's going to make it hang down and look like the hanging detached lobe.
So it'll change the look of your ear.
You might not be able to go as big, because if they're normally attached, they're a little bit smaller, but you can still stretch and take your time and still go to a fairly good size.
All right. An incomplete question from Rocco. Good afternoon, Jared and Scott. I just got my septum pierced. How long after can I? I'll just imagine the rest of the question, and it's probably change my jewelry.
Okay.
So how long do we have to wait on a fresh septum before we can start?
Generally 6 to 8 weeks is the average healing time. So if it feels healed after 6 to 8 weeks, you're fine to change it. Don't leave it out for any length of period of time. They can close up real quick. Same thing goes if you're asking about stretching. If you want to stretch, generally you want to give it about 2 months minimum before you even think about going to the next size. And again, if it hurts, stop.
Ariel Berrien says, hey guys, from Rhode Island. I don't know where I got Florida. She's definitely in Rhode Island. That's definitely what it says. I have a question about my tongue piercing. I can insert metal bars into it, but not plastic. That hurts. Do you know why that would be?
Most metal bars are going to be coming from more reputable manufacturers, and it might be the actual size. Plastic, who knows where it's coming from, and they might be slightly oversized. I'm pretty positive plastic is not internally threaded too. So you have slightly oversized, and you have those threads all on the outside that you're trying to put through. It's totally what it is. So they're probably too big and externally threaded.
And it wouldn't be as smooth. Like the metal has a nice polish on it, so it'll slide right by your skin, and plastic's draggy.
Correct. Correct. It's that's the reason why.
All right. So we don't really recommend plastic jewelry, do we?
No. And a lot of people put plastic jewelry in their tongue because they think it protects their gums and their teeth. It can still do just as much damage. So the most important thing is to downsize to the appropriate size barbell. Super, super important.
All right. Chloe Pfaff just got a vertical labret done about a week ago.
Congratulations.
Is it normal for the ball to always be touching my top lip? My lips are kind of small.
The ball to be always touching the top lip?
So, yeah, vertical labret, and the ball's always touching the top lip.
Oh, you mean like when you're, it all depends on the placement when you actually have it done. Some people want it actually a lot further forward so it doesn't touch the lip. A lot of people like it right where, when you close your mouth, it rests right on the front, so it does touch. Most of the time it does, but if it really bothers you, you can take it out and have it angled out more. If you have the room for it. If you don't have a very pouty lip, that might have been the only option for you too. But with the placement, I mean, even if you downsize, that bead's still going to be in the exact same spot.
But that is a common placement. It's not like it's weird or anything. That's a normal look,
correct, right? I don't ever put it right in the middle, so where if you close your lips, everything completely disappears. I try to make it so it's all in front, but it still almost touches.
So it still touches the top lip, but shows.
It's the way I do it. It kind of depends on what, if it bothers you, maybe you could go like a half dome disc, which means it's not the full bead, but it's flat on the bottom, and it's the half, so it seems way smaller, and that might pull it away just enough, so if that bothers you.
Very cool. So we have some options,
and
Chloe.
It's a week old. You get used to it real quick.
Yeah, there's probably still some swelling involved, too.
Yep.
All right. Christina Stein says, hi, Scott. What products do you like or use for plugs? They get kind of gross. So how do you clean your plugs?
Generally, all I use is soap and water. Okay, so I use a lot of wood plugs. I use stone plugs. I have glass plugs. I'm trying to think of anything else. I have silicone plugs. Right now. I'm wearing them right now. So, all of them are soap and water. I put a thing down over my sink because I always drop my jewelry and it does go in there. So I put a towel down over the sink, and I'll use like a paper towel and just use some soap and water, clean them off, and they wipe right off. It works really, really well. With wood plugs, I will sometimes oil them. I live in the desert. I'm here in Las Vegas, so things get super, super dry. So if I'm wearing wood plugs, I will use olive oil. That's my preferred oil. Some people use mineral oil, vegetable oil, olive oil. There's a bunch of different ones, but you need to re-oil your wood, bone, and horn plugs once in a while. So if they look dry, you need to oil them.
And also, if I recall correctly from a video we made, if you have other kinds of material plugs, but that get a smell that you can't get rid of, oil can help with that too, correct?
Correct. For metal plugs.
Okay.
That's generally for metal. So if you're wearing a metal plug and it gets that funky smell, the natural oil will pull that smell and funk off there. It actually kind of covers it and masks it. It doesn't take it away. It just makes it go away.
It makes it better though.
Yeah. Yep.
Very cool. All right. Up next, we have, how long do you suggest waiting to change a septum? I guess we already answered that, but we'll answer it real quick. How long are we waiting?
6 to 8 weeks. If you're healed up, you don't have crusties, you're totally fine to change it out. Just keep jewelry in the whole time. What I mean by that is don't take your jewelry out and go shopping an hour later try to put it in, because you probably just lost your piercing if you did that.
Ronnie Neff wants to know, is it normal for your belly piercing to still be healing 10 months later?
It can be. The issue with belly piercings that take a long time, chances are you are the right height where you're leaning against the counter and it's constantly being irritated or, just rubbed against. If you're wearing high-waisted pants, this is the biggest factor. You need to wear low-rise pants or unbutton the top and tuck it in so it kind of creates a V so it doesn't press up against it. Sometimes nabels do take up to a year to heal, especially if they're being hit, bumped, or irritated.
All right. Up next, Kaylee has a question about her submissions for What Should I Get Pierced. We'll try to do that for you, Kaylee. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, so it's possible it'll slip through, but we'll try to do that for you. Black Lemonade would love a video on your journey with the heavy mods and suspension. So, like how did you get there, and what led to that place in your life?
Sure, that's a great idea.
Very cool. Thanks, Black Lemonade. We'll do it.
Yeah.
Lube says, hi, I hope you're having a good day.
Fantastic. Hope you are too.
How many piercings could I have done in one setting? I'm thinking about getting a piercing my other nostril along with steak bites and maybe stacked lobes a few days later. Is there a max? What do you think?
Generally, I like 5, maybe 6 piercings max at once. Kind of depends on where you're going. Cartilage piercings take a lot longer. Lobe piercings are a lot easier. Oral piercings are a lot easier. But the more you get, the longer healing process you're going to have. So keep that in mind. Also, the more piercings you get, the weaker your immune system gets. You're more prone to get sick, the cold, flu, or whatever's going around.
Hi, Scott. It's Kat from Maryland. I've gotten my philtrum pierced 2 weeks ago, and it's still swollen. I clean it 3 times a day. It doesn't look infected. It's just swollen.
Okay. If it's too swollen and things are getting sucked into your lip, whether the bead or the disc is going in really far, you might still need a longer post because that's constant irritation if you're over swelling. I'm curious if you've done anything for the swelling, like ibuprofen, Aleve, Advil. Those are anti-inflammatories, as well as cold things. Does it ever stick out, or is it always just super, super tight? So the piercer might have just put too short of a bar in for you, too. So I'm not 100% sure on that one.
And how long for a lip piercing would we expect swelling to last?
3 to 5 days is average, but there is no such real average. I have seen week and a half, 2 weeks before swelling goes down. If you're using a mouthwash with a bunch of alcohol, if you're cleaning it with aftercare.
We're cleaning 3 times a day. Is that excessive?
It might be. Generally, I tell people mouthwash 3 to 5 times a day with alcohol-free and no more than that. And then generally once, maybe twice a day for the wound wash on the outside. That's it.
All right. So hopefully there's some tips there that might lead you to a solution.
If you're on track and it's still swollen, doesn't seem right, go see your piercer.
All right. Ariad Alvis Almeida says, hi, guys. I've had some ear piercings for almost a year, and none of them have healed. I like the look, but I hate the healing process. Is it okay to do piercings temporarily, often, just for the look?
Sure. You can do whatever you want. I mean, it's a rough heal, and you always have open wounds. You're prone to infections. But if you're safe, clean about it, you're not touching it, you can do what you want. I wouldn't recommend it.
So we're talking about getting a piercing and then attending an event with the piercing and then taking it out pretty quick afterwards. Is that what
that I think is a bad idea because it's an extreme open wound at that point. The longer you have it, the less of an open wound it is. If you're going to a concert and you want to get a belly piercing or ear piercing, it's going to get bumped or hit by other people's sweat and whatever, and all that's going inside your body. That's bad news. That's bad news that way. If it's just you want an occasional ear piercing, wear it for 6 months and take it out and do something different, yeah, sure.
Now, and just to keep reading into it, Ariane says that none of the ear piercings have ever healed. What are some of the issues that could cause that? Is it that she's just maybe not be sleeping on it too much and that's causing problems? Could it be the jewelry? Maybe the shop she's going to is using a metal that she's sensitive
It
to?
could be all of the above. Sometimes it's even patience. Some cartilage piercings take a year to heal, and some people get upset after a few months that it's not healed up. So that could be it. They take a long time to heal. The more you get, the longer piercings take to heal too. So how many are you healing? Are you trying to heal like 8 of them in the year? That might just be way too much. What is your aftercare regimen like? Are you actually cleaning it? Are you touching it throughout the day? So there's a lot of variables. Another thing is helmets, headbands, hair products. You just got to really break down your day and figure out what's irritating and why isn't it healing. So
Angela has a question that sort of piggybacks on the multiple ear piercing question. Does that change at all if it's facial piercings? Is there a maximum number of facial piercings we could get at once? If it was, say, all soft tissue, no cartilage, does that like raise the max? Or?
I always leave it at like 5 or 6. Most piercings, there's that open wound for a minimum of a month. Sometimes it's a little bit longer. But anything more than that weakens your immune system because it's spreading out to heal all these different things. And then you're just a big window for other germs to get sick. And I've done it to myself multiple times. That's why, like, healing this tattoo, this piercing, I decide to stretch this. And all of a sudden I'm out for like 3 or 4 days because I'm just sick and all my piercings flare up and sometimes you lose them. So that's the general rule of thumb. It's general health and safety. So heal them up, move on to the next once you're healed.
I don't think people even really think about that. You
really don't. But like I said, I've had hundreds of piercings and I've just loved getting them all the time. And I've done it multiple times where I've gotten myself fully sick and out of work for days. Oops.
Oh, but Biddy has a question about industrial piercings. So what kind of time scale and how long would it take, or will it at all, for the initial lined up holes to shift if we put individual pieces of jewelry in? Like, so how long for that drift? Is that going to happen immediately, or?
I would say within days to weeks to months. If you just need to put one in for a couple days, I don't know, for some reason, like I'm going to be going riding motorcycle and I have to put a helmet on, the 2 bars are way easier to deal with than the full industrial.
Good analogy.
That might work in your favor. It still might, it's a couple steps backwards, but it's probably the better move. But yeah, sometimes it's only a couple days before it starts shifting.
And then when you put those straight bar back in, you're going to get bumps.
Twist in the back, and yeah. So
all right.
Heal it at that angle as best you can.
Right. So basically not long.
Yeah.
And it will definitely happen, right? The other part of the question
There's no promises. You might be able to take them out, and it might be able to go right back in a year or 2 later without any issues.
It depends on your ear. It depends on how it worked out for you.
Yeah.
Cool.
I had a girl come in a couple days ago that had an industrial, and she said she did it herself, and it seemed deeper and they seemed different angles than she should have been able to heal. But she's like, yeah, it's a year old and it's totally healed and it looked fully healed, but didn't look like it should have ever healed at all.
Annalie wants to know how long it takes for an upper lobe / lower helix piercing to fully heal. She can't seem to get an exact answer.
They're really, really tricky areas. I would treat this closer to a cartilage piercing than a lobe. And we're talking about that spot right where the lobe kind of meets the cartilage, right here. Sometimes it's a little lower, sometimes a little higher. And it's like almost like it's mostly lobe, but you nick the cartilage. I'll never understand why this is such a pain in the butt to heal this area, but it always has been. So expect 3 to 6 months, probably minimum. Yeah.
What do you do if your piercing is dry? Is that a problem that you've had?
Yeah, you can moisturize around the area. It depends on why it's dry. If it's new and you're doing sea salt soaks, I'd be nervous that you're mixing your salt water too strong. Sometimes it's the water, the hard water in certain areas can dry skin out. If a piercing gets irritated and bumped and swells up, it almost kills like the top layer of skin. That's why it peels and gets real flaky and dry. So there's a lot of different factors, but you can get lotion, non-scented lotion, pretty close to that area without getting inside without causing problems.
Daniela says, hi guys, hope you're doing great. Is it possible to heal nostril piercings correctly while wearing a mask? Thank you. That's a good question. You can do it, but it does tend to mess with it though, doesn't it?
For the most part, it doesn't. The factor would be is if you have a prong setting on your jewelry. If the mask can get caught on there all the time, that could be an issue. But if you have new masks on, there's not a lot of lace or things for to grab a hold of. The normal paper cloth masks don't catch that often at all. It's pretty rare. The most important thing is that it's clean.
All right. So we got the rest of Rocco's question. I was close, but I didn't guess it exactly right. We got pierced with a 12-gauge circular barbell. How long until we can go up to the 10?
Oh, right on. Yeah, I think I answered the second half. Is if you were stretching, generally about 2 months. Generally, if it feels loose, you don't have crusties, and it moves back and forth, you might be able to go. If you have that 10, take it out in the shower, see if the new one just falls in. If it doesn't, give it another month or a couple weeks. You'll eventually get there.
Emily Sakuma has a flap of skin growing over the back of her Ashley piercing on the inside.
Yep.
It's not growing over, it's just there's a flap. So is that a problem?
It'll probably go away with time. I see this all the time. When you initially do the piercing, your body creates a little pocket for it to rest in, and sometimes there's that little flap of skin, and it just kind of dissipates and goes away. As long as your skin's not growing over the top, this is a good thing to happen because it pulls it away from your teeth and your gums.
Joel, just some positive words. He's psyched himself out a few times, but in a previous Q&A asked if he should get a septum. Probably just said yes. Went out and got a septum. It's been a couple weeks, loving it, and it's healing great. So
right on. Congratulations. I'm so happy to hear that.
Very cool. Endless Sky wants to know what your advice is on stretching from a 3 millimeter to a 4 millimeter. We've only stretched in half sizes, so the 3 to 4 seems tough. Seems like a big jump.
Patience is the key. A month and a half to 2 months minimum for each stretch. I'm assuming we're talking about an earlobe piercing. And if it doesn't go, give it a little bit longer. And you can find in between sizes. I'm really bad with the millimeters because I'm more with the normal American gauge.
Oh, normal, huh?
The normal here for me.
Barbarian
normal
units.
For me.
Barbarian units.
Barbarian units. Thanks, Jared. Yeah, so 3 to 4 mil. I'm not exactly sure how big that is, but those jumps, you're starting to get to the slightly larger size.
Does somebody make a 3.5? Is there an in-between size maybe?
Sure, someone does.
Dancing Leaf wants to know, after removing the irritant, do piercing bumps go away by themselves? And why in some cases do piercing bumps never go away?
Most of the time, if you get rid of the irritant, the bump goes away, because if I were to push on my hand like this for a long while, you can see how the skin gets a little distorted. I would eventually create a barrier scar tissue to kind of protect it. But if I remove my hand, that scar tissue is eventually just going to go away because the irritant went away. Now, if I were to do an industrial piercing and this bar and these angles are perfect, the bumps will go away. But if they're completely different angles and we're twisting, the irritant never goes away. Therefore, the bump won't go away either.
All right. So if a bump never goes away, there is some hidden irritant. There's some reason.
Sometimes it's the angle of the piercing, the length of the bar,
the type of metal might be disagreeing with you.
Yeah, so there's a couple different types of irritants that it could be. But generally, the bumps we're talking about that never go away are industrial piercings.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Izzy is wanting to get a piercing apprenticeship, and before they start, they want to get qualifications in infection control and bloodborne pathogens. Mm-hmm. So what are we looking for in a course if we're trying to find a bloodborne pathogen course or an infection control course?
I wish I had the best answer for you. The best answer is if you were if you were ever able to go to the APP conference and take their bloodborne pathogen course. It is job specific. It's for exactly what we do. I've taken other bloodborne pathogen courses and they don't really hit to what we focus on. So it's a long, boring course that you don't get as much out of as
something piercing specific.
Correct. And then you go online and there's a lot of Red Cross certified bloodborne pathogen courses that you do within an hour. And I personally think most of them are just kind of a joke. They're just, you can't learn anything. You can't get anything wrong. I don't understand why they're acceptable. I feel like you should go hands-on, one-on-one and get a,
learn it from a real course.
So I wish I could tell you a real specific course, but the best thing to do is find a local community, a person that teaches those classes. That's your best bet. The online ones, they teach you a little bit, but if you do a little research on your own, you can learn just as much in a matter of minutes. So.
Right. And you don't know if it's thorough. That's the thing about learning from a person.
Yeah. So that's a really good question. I wish there was a better source for us to get this information.
Well, we're slowly building these sources. Yeah. There will be one eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Will Taylor is looking to get a nose and helix pierced. Is it fine to get both done at the same time?
A nose and a helix?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Should be totally fine as long as you're not healing up anything else. Now, before we go on to the next question, can you look up and see if the APP has, I know they just started offering online courses. They might have an online bloodborne pathogen course. If that's the case, that's the answer. But I'm not 100% sure. So we're looking that up for you right now. I've taken so many of these courses. It's just insane how much different information you can actually get. There was another guy named Sky Renfro who used to go to different shops and teach us where you could get your local communities, like other shops, and all kind of sit in on the same class. Those were fantastic too. I can't remember the actual name of his courses though. So, and cheers to any of those who are drinking. I got my coffee here.
All right, let's get you another question while I do this research for you. Brandy Dove Osborne says, I got my nostril pierced in mid-December. Is it safe to switch to a hoop? And if not, how much longer do you recommend waiting?
Now, for changing to a ring for a nostril piercing, I say a minimum of 3 to 4 months. The longer you wait, the better off you're going to be. Now, if you've had any bumps or irritations more recently, then I would say you should wait a little bit longer. Like you should be completely bump or problem-free for at least 1 month and at least in that 3 to 4 month range. Now, the thing is during your healing process, your nostril is going to be like your normal nostril will get swollen and you're trying to put a curve through there. So the more swollen you are, the more curve you're wearing, and it puts pressure, and those bumps are so tough to get rid of. So make sure you're patient and wait the right amount of time.
All right. It does look like the APP is offering a bloodborne pathogens standard for body piercers general U.S. course, 4 hours long. And it looks like this is something that you can sign up for online, and it includes downloadable resources, video content, and closed captioning. We'll present the OSHA bloodborne pathogen standard as it's written and discuss how this applies to the body piercing environment. So, yeah.
Sweet. We have an answer for you.
So your answer
this is the answer that you want to do.
Excellent.
And the APP, you have to go to safepiercing.org is their website. So,
yes.
Yeah.
I went to Google and typed APP bloodborne pathogens, and this was the first thing that came up.
Perfect.
So if everyone's
sweet
Google bubbles similar to mine, it'll work. Christopher J says, thank you, guys. It's only been 2 weeks, and it's healing great, answered perfectly. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
Hong Binny says, hey, Scott, I've had a lot of earrings in my ears, and besides multiple lobes, I don't have any duplicates. I feel like I'm running out of ideas to decorate my left ear. Any unique recommendations?
Yeah. Chains, maybe orbitals or industrials if you're able to custom bend bars to kind of fit into things. Sometimes adding charms to those, just like extra fancy it up. Sometimes you can theme things out. I know if you have a bunch of piercings, but changing your themes, like if you can change beads from white opals to black opals, or maybe start anodizing everything in the blues or purples or greens, that's a fun way to go about changing things up without actually getting more piercings. I'm sure there's more room for more piercings, but sometimes you have to retire certain piercings to move on to others, because when you have 100 piercings in your ear, you can't see any individual one, and I think it loses its effect. Okay. Unless that's the look you're going for, was like, how much can I do?
A forest, right? But
so
it's less of a spotlight on any individual one.
Yeah, there's still options. There's still some fun things you can do.
Rebecca Bailey wants to talk about earlobes. So let's do it. So we talked about earlier attached versus unattached earlobes and how that might affect stretching.
Sure.
How does that affect transverse lobe piercings? Can I get a transverse lobe, meaning side to side through the lobe,
yes,
if it's attached? And sort of related question, can this be done with a curved barbell so that it can be on higher in the lobe? What do you think about Rebecca's interesting lobe question?
Right, that's a great question. I love this question. If you have attached lobes, chances of you getting a transverse is slim to none, unless you were able to stretch your lobes and create the detached lobe, where then you might be able to use the straight bar, but you'd probably have to use a curved bar to kind of go through the inside. I like where this is going. Now, you can't necessarily pierce too much of a curve in there. I have experience with this, and it was kind of a mess. So I had this idea that I wanted to try to put a ring in someone's ear transverse many, many years ago. So the idea was I'm going to pierce one needle up this way and another needle up this way, kind of creating more like that 90-degree angle. I couldn't twist the ear enough, so I pierced into it. And what that did is it created an open path where those both turned into faucets for blood, and it was a mess. I don't know if I even got the jewelry in. It was kind of the Wild West of piercing back then. So piercing with a curve like that, if you can pull the ear down, you might be able to a little bit, but chances are no.
Awesome.
Good question. Really good
Very
question.
cool. Thank you, Rebecca. Paige says, I got my triple lobes pierced about 4 months ago, and they got irritated, so I continued to clean them twice a day. Mm-hmm. They don't hurt at all, and I can sleep on them now. Would you say that they're healed?
Probably. Generally, lobes take 6 to 8 weeks. Now, when you say triples, that means you're kind of getting into that cartilage area. So if you hit the cartilage, you might still be healing for a couple more months at this point. But listen to your own body. If you don't have crusties, it doesn't hurt, you're probably healed up.
Brian Lake says, hi, Scott. I'm 41, and I just had my first piercing done like 2 months ago.
Congratulations.
But I have been interested and fascinated with this art for several years. Is it too late to start thinking of a career as a piercer? Is that something you have to get started in young, or could you think about beginning this career at 41?
I think you could totally do it. It's going to be a little bit tougher finding an apprenticeship and so forth. It's a tough thing to get into, but it's a scary thing to get into because it takes a long time to build up the reputation and create a serious career out of it. Granted, I started a long, long time ago when it really wasn't a thing. I was sleeping out of my car for a while. I mean, I did everything I could, and a lot of times it's more of a job in the beginning, and then as you get the experience, it turns more into the career. So you won't make a lot of money in the beginning. So keep that in mind. You might be able to do this and keep a side job on the other side to help support you until you get to that point. It's easier for younger kids to start off with because of the whole financial situation. So that's the way I would answer it. But no, I don't think it's too late.
All right. So how long would you say it takes to become like a competent piercer? If you have like a good apprenticeship, you go about things the correct way, how long from beginning the process to being able to be a competent piercer working at a shop somewhere?
Competent, maybe a couple years to start having a reputation about being a quality, probably a minimum 5 to 10 years. It takes a little bit. You're going to do probably a minimum of a year-long apprenticeship. You got to work in some stores, build your name up, and the word needs to spread out there. And it's going to take years for you to get smoother and smoother and smoother until you're just fluent at what you do. So it does take 5 to 10 years before you get to a point where you're
all right
at that fluent level. Yeah.
So it's possible, Brian, if you love it and you want to go for it, then throw yourself behind it and make it happen.
It's a tough career, but it's so worth it. You make so many people happy. It's an amazing thing.
All right. Next question. Hi, my Helix 5-month-old piercing keeps getting a little pustule behind it. It doesn't hurt or bother me, but it always comes back. I have a titanium stud in. So what do you think there?
Hopefully your piercing's not migrating or kind of changing angles. You said it's 5 months old. Maybe you might need to downsize. If it seems like you got that bump on the back, you might be able to go to a shorter post once that bump goes away. Once you go to the shorter post, there probably won't be as much irritation, and that's what's causing that bump to happen. So maybe downsize once that bump goes away.
All right. Strunk says, hey, love your videos. I got my tongue pierced 6 months ago, and 2 days ago it started healing or started swelling and hurting. What could be causing this, and what can I do about this irritation?
Sometimes just catching on something, playing with it the wrong way, you can have a small rip or tear in the tongue piercing, which can cause the irritation. Sometimes if you're getting sick, the cold, flu, things like that, piercings will flare up, and that's totally a possibility. So be aware of your general health, and maybe like some vitamin C might help kind of get back to normal again. So
perfect. Alexandria Delgado says, hey, I have my tongue piercing. Had it for 3 weeks, and I've had the bar shortened already. Wondering if I could change my tongue ring to a Bioplast one now, or do I need to wait the full 4 to 6 weeks?
I will wait a little bit longer. It does take a good month, 2 months before you're fully healed up on this one. I'm not a big fan of the Bioplast. Now, for tongue piercings, especially, the plastic doesn't hold as well. Chances are you're going to eat your jewelry eventually. A lot of the Bioplast is the push style. And in general, I'm just not a fan of the Bioplast. Plastic's not really designed for the body this way.
Music Media Outlets is having a hard time taking out a double forward helix piercing.
Yes.
We tried to twist to the left, and we tried wearing gloves, and we can't get it out. Any tips?
A lot of forward helix piercings are done with threadless jewelry. They are probably not threaded in there, which means you need to hold on to the back and the front, and you literally pull it apart. Okay, so like the pin is normally that goes into this post is straight, but we put a small bend on there. So when it goes in, it's held in by pressure. So that's generally the way it needs to be done. Sometimes we put a really, really hard bend on there so that jewelry doesn't come out very easy. You might need to see your piercer about getting it undone. But literally, try pulling it instead of the twisting. That'll probably help.
All right. Don't you love it when a tip can literally just solve a problem?
Yeah.
I love it. Alex says, hey, Scott and Jared. My septum is currently 5 weeks old, and the 8mm horseshoe bar feels tight around the tip of my nose. Should I get bigger jewelry, or will I get used to it? I love your videos.
Thanks for watching, and I would say go see your piercer. A lot of piercers will actually adjust your jewelry while it's in your nose. So if it's pinching the bottom of your nose a little bit, we can take like a ring opening pliers and just give you that 1mm, whatever, enough room just to be better. Because that's probably all it is. It's probably just touching, and if you just give it a little bit, swelling goes back down, and you're back to normal again. So yeah, I would talk to your piercer about adjusting your jewelry. Once you're fully healed, then you could maybe go up to a larger ring.
All right, Alex. So go in and talk to him. They might be able to just bend it a little more comfortable.
A lot of times, yeah, you don't even need to take the jewelry out. You just kind of put a little clamp on there, and it opens up. It's completely painless, and yeah, that might be what you need. Perfect. With a circular barbell?
Yes.
Yeah.
Camila Alvarez says, hi, guys. I wanted to know how soon it would be possible to downsize a conch. My piercer told me to downsize in 2 weeks, and it's been around that time, and the swelling is down, but I don't know. What do you think?
I generally tell people a minimum of probably a month and a half to 2 months on this one. Again, you're trying to heal a tube of scar tissue, and that scar tissue is really, really thin, and it's easy to rip and tear at this point. Cartilage piercings take a long time to heal because there's not a lot of blood flow to the area. That's why cartilage takes longer to downsize than, say, a lip, oral piercing, or other piercings that have more blood flow. So I would give it a little bit longer if I were you. But if it's causing problems, having that shorter post will eliminate the problems if that's the case.
All right. Gordo just moved to Las Vegas and plans to visit the shop sometime.
Welcome to Las Vegas, my friend.
I'd like to get my lobes pierced. Is there anything to take into consideration about attached versus detached? Not sure what would look best. These are popular questions today.
Yeah, it really is. I would have to see your earlobes. That's the honest.
But they're all pierceable, right? You come in, we do what's best, right?
Most ears are pierceable. Mine, we found this little nub here, but my earlobes were removed. I don't have any tissue because they were removed. I've never met someone who doesn't even have enough tissue to pierce either, though. So I'm the only one in this exception that I know of.
So for the most part, you're
pierceable. It just depends on where we're able to pierce you and what would look right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So make an appointment. Come on down.
Yeah.
Piercing.Vegas. Lily Beebe says, I've had my tongue pierced since last August, and I have a pretty big bump on the bottom that fluctuates in size and pain. I'm not sure if it's because of the metal. What do I do?
In my experience, bumps generally aren't caused by the metal. Bumps are caused from playing with it or too long of a bar or not a good enough polish. If you're having a problem with the metal, a lot of times our skin grows away from the metal, so it looks like the ball will want to be sinking into the top if it's a metal allergy. Now, that being said, I would say maybe check on the quality of your bar. Maybe you need a shorter one or one with a higher polish. I personally just like titanium in general a lot better, so maybe change to the titanium bar too. I know it might not be a metal allergy, but it could be the weight too. There's a lot of factors.
Kimberly's going to get her cartilage done this weekend, so lots of luck there. We hope that goes great for you. Anna has a problem with her industrial. The bottom part of it scabs up. Hang on, of course I lost my spot. I'm back. The bottom part of my 9-month-old industrial keeps scabbing. My ear anatomy is good. My jewelry is implant-grade titanium, and I use sterile saline for cleaning. I'm not sure what's causing it. What could be wrong if we're taking care of our industrial properly?
After 9 months?
And this is after 9 months. We keep getting scabs on the bottom.
The bottom, I'm guessing, on the outside of the ear. I'm not 100% sure. Either you're sleeping on it. It could be hair product. Do you ever put a helmet on for any reason? Do you ride a motorcycle? That could be causing irritation. Is the bead screwed all the way in? Check that out, because if the bead's not screwed all the way in and there's a little gap, that thing might be moving in and out and causing irritations and problems there. If the bar's too long or too short, that would cause problems. Those are my only real guesses without actually seeing it. So,
all right. Yeah. Kind words from Riki. You are beautiful inside and out.
Thank you very much.
Crazy Keck Hits says, hey, Scott, or anyone here, I've had snake bites done for about 3.5 months, but I have to go to the dentist in about 3 months. Should I take them out? Like, do you have to take out your lip piercings before you go to the dentist?
Oh, take them out. I thought they were talking about their dentist. Like, don't take out the dentist.
Yeah, no, dentists, they spend a lot of time in school. We need those guys.
Yeah. I don't know. It kind of depends on your dentist. A lot of times they can work around it. If you're doing x-rays and things like that, they're going to make you take your metal ones out. I'm pretty sure they're going to give you a hard time about having oral piercings, so be prepared for that. But the most important thing is that you have that short bar. It's out of their way. If you take them out, they can start closing quick. If you know you're getting x-rays, I would definitely look into getting some retainers just to keep that piercing hole open if you need to take them out. So hope that helps you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Tendu Kinney says, I have my tongue piercing for almost 3 weeks, but it feels like I have it for months. Plus, I can't wait until it's going to be downsized. So it's feeling good already. Do we still have to wait?
After 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Wait for what?
It's like to downsize or...
No, downsize. I tell people 2 weeks on tongue piercings because it's so easy just to bite down and do damage to your teeth. The sooner you can downsize on that one, the better off you are. But like I said, minimum of 2 weeks. So if you're 3 weeks and it feels great, put that shorter one in there.
All right. So downsize it. Aaron5777 says, hey, Scott, in my case, all surface piercings, eyebrow, navel, have grown out, and I want to ask you if it's also possible with a nipple piercing. Greetings from Germany. So if we've had trouble with surface piercings, does that mean we're going to have trouble with a nipple piercing?
No. I'm really curious about the navel. When you say surface navel, are you talking about the surface bar underneath the navel, which kind of goes horizontal side to side like this? Or was it just more of a vertical navel piercing where you didn't have a ridge? That would be the reason why. Those are notorious for rejecting out. There's just a lot of movement in that area. Eyebrow piercings, I've had a dozen on each side. I've had a good dozen or so reject out too. So those are notorious for rejecting. The other ones were totally fine. Nipple piercings typically don't reject unless it's pierced way too shallow or you're too rough with them as far as like stretching and you create the tissue to go thin. So you should be totally fine there.
All right. Vlad says, I had a septum piercing and my friends told me to move it to avoid the closing of the hole. Are they right? Do you have to move stuff around, like slide? Because remember, that was the old advice. You always had to slide an earring in and out and move it around all the time. Is that still cool?
Friends have great advice, but a lot of times their information is outdated. And that is the situation here. They're trying to help. Awesome job, guys. But here's the situation. Spinning and rotating comes from the piercing guns at the mall because if you don't spin or rotate it, the skin can grow over the top. I've seen this happen. When you get pierced by a professional, we put oversized jewelry in so the skin doesn't grow over the top. Now, we're talking about a septum piercing here. Is that
yes.
Yeah. There's no way your skin is going to create a tube and go all the way around your septum piercing. So don't touch it. Leave it be. If it needs to be moved for some reason, maybe to flip it up so it can kind of not move around, make sure you wash your hands first. But otherwise, hands off.
So that's just not true anymore. Don't spin it. Don't rotate it. Don't mess with it. Just don't.
Not with any body piercing.
All right. Yeah. So just don't touch them, guys. Raylan, you could get deep into this, but try to keep it light. Raylan wants to know, what's the difference between an irritation bump and a keloid? And can a keloid be formed because of an irritation bump? Like, what's the quick idea on that?
Yeah, okay. Now, maybe you can pull up a keloid for me, Jared. It's like sometimes you're going to see people where they have like this huge, giant growth on the back of their ear. Now, that is a keloid. A keloid is a medical condition where when trauma happens to the skin, it just creates an excessive amounts of scar tissue and continues to grow. Sometimes, like, doctors don't fully understand it. You get hydrocortisone shots. These are what keloids are. If you have this medical condition, you know you have this. So you should talk to your piercer before you get pierced.
So like here on this ear one, if you had the condition of getting keloids and then you pierce your ear, it might cause that keloid to light up, right?
Correct. But a normal scar, like a normal piercing bump, like you
Like
see
this
ear,
bump, this you would say is not a keloid.
that's not a keloid. I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I can't legally say that, I guess, but that's probably a piercing bump. It's not going to continue to grow. It just looks a little bit irritated from sleeping on it, most likely. So there's a big difference between keloids and the normal piercing bumps. It's just we mix and match these terms so freely that it all sounds the same. That's the difference. It's a good question, though.
Green Tea has a question. Why is Vaseline generally seen as safe on a piercing needle, but it's unsafe on a healing piercing? Would surgical lube be a better choice than Vaseline?
Okay. No, it's not safe on a piercing needle. You should never use petroleum-based products on a piercing needle. You should use a water-based lubricant. That's what you need to use. I use Surgilube, Dynalube. There's a couple other different ones that we use that are individual use packets. If your piercer is using straight up Vaseline, find another piercer. They're not using the right stuff.
All right. So surgical lube is the appropriate thing to use when piercing.
Correct. Let me see if we use Dynalube here, which are individual use packets. So you just get it individual and you throw it away. It's sterile inside the packet. Once it's airborne, it's not sterile anymore, but that's how these things work.
All right. So definitely better. Don't go to someone who uses
I
Vaseline.
don't know any reason why someone should use Vaseline for any piercing in any reason other than to like maybe moisturize the skin around the piercing hole, but it should never be used inside the piercing.
It doesn't even see like it's not that lubricative either. It doesn't, it's almost like catchy instead of being
thick.
really
Yeah.
All right.
Some piercers will use like bacitracin or neosporin for the lubricant to the needle. Again, that's not the proper thing either. I think a lot of this comes from the tattoo artist because a lot of tattoo artists will use a lubricant on the skin like a vitamin like A&D ointment, and they'll put it on the skin and they use that as a lubricant for the needle as well because it's going in and out so fast. But here, it's a single-use thing. I use Teflon-coated needles with the water-based lubricant.
Only the best at piercing Vegas.
That's right. Here in Las Vegas. That's where I'm at.
Bat Dad Singo says, hello, I just got both my nostrils pierced yesterday. How long should I expect the swelling to last? And do you recommend cleaning with saline once a day only?
Generally, once a day is the best way to clean this piercing. You spray on the outside with that wound wash spray and the inside. Let it sit and wipe off crusties with a paper towel or gauze. Stay away from those Q-tips. Now, once a day is generally enough. Now, if you're throughout the day and you bump it or hit it and it gets sore and you have a bunch of crusties, clean it again. Just don't get in the habit of doing it multiple times throughout every single day.
And how long is that piercing going to last for a double nostril?
Swelling's going to last maybe a couple days.
Did I say piercing? I meant swelling. Piercing will last forever.
Piercing should last forever. Swelling's like 3 to 5 days is on average, and then it might moving around a little bit more on the inside. But you got to wait about a month to 2 months minimum before thinking about changing. Closer to 2 months.
All right. Briefly, Alex wants to know what's the most bizarre piercing you've seen or maybe even done. It doesn't mean necessarily dangerous, just like something you don't see a lot. You think of something that comes to mind?
I had, probably the fourth nipples. I had a guy come in and we pierced all 4 of his nipples. They weren't fully developed, but he had slightly underdeveloped nipples on the underside, and we got all 4 of them in there.
I think that wins right there. That's the answer right there.
I've done armpit piercings. Someone came in and they had too many piercings on their face, and work said we couldn't have any more, and they already had their nipples and navel. Can we pierce my armpits? And I did surface bars here. I don't think it's the best idea. I've done elbow piercings. A raver came in and said he eventually wanted to put strings and some glow sticks on there. I'm like, I don't think this is a good idea. He's like, I got to try it. So I pierced surface bars on his elbows. I don't think this is a good idea. I've done some weird things before, but
So there's plenty of, if you can find a unique person, you can find a unique idea, I guess. So Ronnie wants to know how you can tell if your belly piercing is starting to reject. What are our warning signs?
If it seems like the bar is growing, I guarantee you the bar is not growing. Your skin is getting less and less on the inside. If you're concerned about this, use your camera phone, take a picture from a week-to-week or month-to-month basis, and you will see if it looks different. If it seems like it's getting less and less, it's coming out, just remove your piercing, because if it grows all the way out, it will split and you'll have a much larger scar.
Sin has a Helix piercing that we've had for 9 months, and we've never changed the jewelry. So do you recommend that they go to a piercing shop to help change that jewelry for the very first time, or is that something they should be able to do on their own?
If it's fully healed up, You're totally fine to try it yourself. I generally suggest give yourself time to go see a piercer if you can't get it in. So if you're in a hurry and you need to get to work, changing your jewelry right before work is not the best idea, because with the whole Murphy's Law, it won't go in.
Something
but if you give yourself time to say, hey, I'm going to change my jewelry out. I got everything all set up. I clean. It's lubricated. I move the jewelry back and forth, take it out. New one should go in just fine. And I have Scott ready to go in case I need to go in.
So you're saying do it during business hours. Do it at a time when you could immediately go to your piercer and have them fix whatever problem.
Just plan for things to not go smoothly so you can have it fixed in case it doesn't go smoothly.
How long should someone wait before changing their navel piercing for the first time?
I would say 4 to 6 months minimum. If your piercing doesn't have swelling, redness, or any crusties anymore, you're probably okay to change it. Minimum of 4 months.
Breadstick says, hi, Scott.
Hi, Breadstick.
I got my conch done, I think 2, maybe 3 weeks ago. Is it normal that the ear is still sore if my cartilage is touched?
Yes. A lot of times we get these bruised feelings, and it's going to stay sore for several months. It's going to get a little less and a little less as time goes on, but it shouldn't ever be painful. Just like you said, like bruise. If you touch it, it's going to be a little tender.
Terry Berry has a question. I have a bump on my ear, but my lower ear piercing is fine, so I plan on stretching it. Would the bump cause any problems? So I think we're talking about like maybe a bump on a helix piercing, and we want to stretch a lobe.
If they're not really related, if stretching this doesn't affect this, you're totally fine. There's
no reason to wait for the bump to be gone to do other stuff necessarily.
Correct. I want to go back to the last question too about the conch piercing. If you were still wearing masks and masks go back there across the back of your ear, a lot of times this causes a lot of soreness and irritation. So if you're still wearing a mask, get a mask extender which goes across the back of your neck.
That way they're not hanging on your ears.
Yeah, masks can cause a lot of problems with the back of conch piercings.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So Kieran O'Sullivan is a fan of ours and has been for quite some time. If you remember, we watched a video of a pretty awesome nasolang at one point.
It was awesome.
Kieran actually got a vampire piercing and sent us a pic if you want to see it.
We do. Please.
Boom.
Yes. Super dope. And the reason they're calling this a vampire piercing is it's supposed to replicate those bites on the side of the neck. Wow, what a crazy industrial you got going on too, dude. Love it. That's a custom bent industrial if I've ever seen one.
Very cool, Kieran. We love it. Great to see you here. Glad he's actually here in the chat today, so good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome. Back in the day, we used to do some of the worst piercings ever were the vampire bites because we used to purposely put straight bars in the surface so it wouldn't heal and it would leave scars.
Okay, because people wanted the two scars.
So we purposely pierced. I don't think it was the best idea ever. That looked like it was done properly with the surface bar, so props to you for doing it the proper way.
All right. Tuppy Tappy says, hi, Scott and Jared. I got snake bites 7 weeks ago, and the outside area is still a bit red, and I have a small bump on the inside of the lip. Do you know if Scandinavian dip, snus, affects the healing? So, those are little packets with nicotine or tobacco in them. Yes.
It probably does. It totally could be an irritant that is not meant to be introduced to the bloodstream, which an open wound like a piercing is being introduced right in there. So it could cause a whole bunch of other problems. I understand if you do something like that and you're addicted and it's hard to stop, but you got to do your best to get it away from there as much as possible. I don't really know for sure how it would affect that. I've never done those.
Right. So, but it does make sense. I've known people. I come from Pennsylvania originally, and it is an irritant. I think if you have a little cut in your mouth, it'll exacerbate that, make it worse. So I wouldn't be surprised.
This is the type of thinking we need to have with our piercings. It's like, this is the problem. This is what I do. That's how you attack these problems. Like what goes in there, what's causing. If it's causing, maybe go to the upper side of your lip, maybe off to the side. If there's a different alternative way you can get your nicotine for sure, maybe you need to do the nicotine patch for a week or two to kind of
let it heal up.
Whatever you need to do. But I know stress is also a factor. So if you're addicted to nicotine, you can't just stop. And then now you got this other factor coming in too. It's crazy. You just got to balance things out and figure it out.
Try to figure it out.
Props to you for trying to figure that out. Right.
All right. Just some kind words from 112358 meow. It says, hello, new piercer here, and I love your videos. It truly helps.
Thanks, and welcome to the community.
All right, so up next, what are your thoughts on silicone piercing rings?
silicone piercing rings.
Yeah, so like what you're wearing in your ear right
Like the
now, a
plugs up
silicone plug or
Yeah,
a silicone
okay.
jewelry of some kind.
Okay, I've seen silicone rings before, is why I was confused. But a lot of times they're used for implants.
Okay.
So we don't really pierce with those. But like the silicone plugs, they're fantastic. They're super comfortable. They are one of the worst things ever for stretching. Do not stretch with silicone. I'm going to repeat that one more time. Do not stretch with silicone. It will end up bad for you. So it's real tacky and sticky, but once you're healed up, it's probably one of the most comfortable pieces of jewelry you can wear.
112358 Meow follows up with a question. What's the max stretch on ears in one sitting that you suggest?
I say one size. That's from 1 gauge to the next, from like a 4 gauge to a 2 gauge. And it all kind of depends on your ear, what you're stretching. Like if you have nothing in your ears to start off with and you always wear real heavy earrings, I might be able to go up to a side, to follow through with tapers where it doesn't hurt. But most of the time, it's one size and a proper stretch shouldn't hurt. If you're doing a couple sizes, I guarantee you're going to feel it.
And if you're hurting it, you're creating scar tissue, you're making
ripping, tearing, you're making it more impossible for things to close up, making it tougher to stretch in the future. It's a lose-lose situation. Patience is the key.
Patience. So many things in life. That is just the answer.
It is. No one wants to hear it, but that is the answer.
Exactly. I'm too impatient to hear that answer. Nicole Sims says, good morning, Scott and Jared. I recently had my tragus pierced, and this will be week 3 of my healing process. So far, so good. How long should I wait till I get my next piercing? How do you decide that usually?
It all depends on where you're going. If you are going to the other side of your ear, you're healing this period. Can you sleep on your tragus yet? If you can't sleep on your tragus and you do your other cartilage, you're stuck on your back. Now, if you're going to do just a normal helix or a couple over on this ear, it's not going to affect the healing of that one, and you're already not sleeping on it. So I say go for it. So it just depends on lifestyle. Can you sleep on the one side? Is that a factor? That's the biggest one. I don't like to have more than 5 piercings healing on someone at once. And that also includes tattoos. So if you have a big tattoo and you heal a couple piercings, that does take its toll on your body too.
Lisa R. wants to know a question that probably many people have wondered. Why can't I go give blood except for 6 months after a piercing? So there's a rule that asks if you've been pierced in the last 6 months, says you can't give blood. Lisa wants to know why.
Basically, I don't know.
Yeah,
they're testing all the blood anyways. I don't see why they shouldn't be able to. But they're assuming that a lot of people are doing things real dirty. You're using contaminated needles. It takes this long for things to show up. But realistically, we're being inspected by the Board of Health. They're in the same stipulations as a lot of these other shops are. Even the people who take the plasma centers, they're being inspected by the same people. So I don't have a real answer for you. I wish I did.
Just they're trying to be as safe as they possibly can be.
That's what it comes down to.
And if you've had a wound recently, that's somewhat less safe, I guess. That makes sense on some level.
Kind of. I don't know. Personally, I think it's more important to give blood and have that available than not have the availability of having blood because of a piercing. But that's my opinion.
Heike wants to know if you think that a labret would be a good first piercing.
Yeah, absolutely. Get a piercing you want and you're going to love and you're going to appreciate it more. Don't just get a piercing because it's a good first piercing. Get something you like. But as far as easy piercings to get and easy ones to heal, yeah, it's a good one.
Janice Paulson says, my piercer told me to downsize my tongue piercing after 2 months, but every piercer says something different. What do you think?
We do. I say 2 weeks. The reason I say 2 weeks on tongue as opposed to anything else is that's the one you're going to bite down and do damage to your teeth. And at this point, I would rather you not do damage to your teeth and get the proper size bar in there. If you come in to have us downsize, we're able to do it fast enough where we generally don't cause any trauma or damage. And if it does re-swell, you can always just put that bar back in. But I haven't really had too many people come back ever to have the longer bar put back in. So 2 weeks is what I think is the earliest and the best. So that's the reason why. And it is different climate-wise. Not climate, but regional-wise. Different parts of the world have different climates, which affect the healing differently, different waters, the foods we're eating. There's a lot of different factors which can contribute, but tongues downsize faster than all the rest.
Kieran actually clarified for us that that's not a surface bar, but 2 separate dermals. And
really?
Yes, we're going to get next stream. We'll actually probably even show the video.
Sweet.
Very
Love
cool.
to see it again. Thanks again. Yeah, it looked like a surface bar. Sometimes you can't tell the difference between the surface bar and a dermal anchor. Dermal anchors are where they have that little foot underneath, and there's like little holes, and it just anchors it into there. So they're 2 individual piercings. A surface bar is where you lift up the skin and you pierce underneath, and then you're seeing both sides. It just has that 90-degree uplift.
Very cool.
Cool.
Teppy Tappy has an interesting question. My little sister, who is 12, wants a navel piercing. That is legal where they are. But Is it a bad idea, do you think, to get it at that age, even if it is legal?
I personally do, because, at 12, you're still growing. And that's my biggest factor. You're not done growing. So even if we do the piercing straight, it's things shift. It might be too deep. It might be too shallow. It might go crooked. And it's just hard. Navel piercings can be a long healing process. And at 12, you're saying, hey, you're willing to take up 1/10 of your life
healing
piercing. That's a huge commitment.
That's a great point. It's harder to commit to that kind of time period when it's
and you're that young, you're active, you're moving way more. The older you get, the slower you move. Generally.
All right. Avi Levy says, what's the solution for a thinning earlobe?
Massage it, keep blood flowing to that area. Don't keep stretching if it's getting much thin. If it gets too thin, you need to stop, but sometimes you can kind of re-angle the way your piercings are stretched, whether you use like teardrop type shapes or angled. So because the thinner point is where the area is going to start stretching more, and the wider area won't stretch as much. So that might be one solution for you. And then there's always relief cuts if you need to, but if you can't stretch and put that much tension on it, it might be kind of tough. A relief cut is where a body modification artist will cut up the ear, giving you a little bit more room and making the hole go up instead of down.
Heavy Metal Vomit 666 wants to know how to properly dead stretch. So what is dead stretching?
Dead stretching is basically stretching without tools, which is the best method in my opinion. The tool you need to use is some hot water and lube. So give it some time when you're in the shower or bath, or if you've soaked your ear in some warm water, that loosens the tissue up, massage it quite a bit, and then you're able to take that lube with some like soap or whatever, and you should be able to slide it right in. That's what a dead stretch is, and that's the best method.
And what kind of aftercare will you do if you have dead stretched your lobes? What kind of ongoing aftercare do we continue?
You shouldn't have any aftercare really, other than general maintenance cleaning. There's no open wound. It's just as healed as it was before. Don't spin or rotate it because it's probably going to be a little tight. And if it wants to spin or rotate on its own, it's totally fine. But it's just like putting on a tight pair of pants. By the end of the day, they're a little bit looser. You just got to give it some time to relax.
Simultaneous question from a couple people. Have you ever done a tongue split, and is it difficult to heal?
I will eventually bring in a body modification artist to actually interview about the tongue splitting, tongue bifurcation. I have never done one. I'm not a body modification artist. The only true cutting I've ever done with any sort of scalpel is once I did a relief cut on a friend, and it wasn't my thing. I didn't want to do it past that. So it went well, but it wasn't my thing. So does it heal well? It's brutal. That's all I got to say. Literally when you do the tongue bifurcation, it's cut, it starts closing up. So if you do the cut, I think they say you lose about a third of it. So they say you need to floss it and kind of, it's brutal. Oh, yeah.
All right. So, yeah. No Boots for Snakes says, hello, Scott. I got a Helix for 8 months now. It's not painful at all, seems healed, but the cartilage is still swollen like 6 or 7 millimeters. Sometimes it'll swell down, sometimes it'll swell up, seems random. Is that normal?
Yeah. It takes forever to heal up, especially if you're sleeping on it. Just the smallest little irritation causes the swelling to happen. Sometimes it's climate, a lot of variables, but yeah, they take a long time to fully heal.
And they've even tried different metals, like a few different types of titanium, steel, And
this is all within a year? Or is it over
8 months?
Yeah, you're still in the healing process. That's normal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fireblade 1 stretched their Prince Albert from a 4 millimeter to a 5 millimeter a month ago, and we want to go to 6 months or 6 millimeters. Mm-hmm. Is 4 weeks enough time?
Generally, 6 to 8 weeks is what you're going to want to wait. The thing is if you actually pull on the ring a little tiny bit, if you see a gap of skin underneath there, or no, not a gap of skin, but a gap of air where there's loose tissue, you might be able to go right up to that size. If you're dead stretching it yourself and you have the jewelry, you can always take yours out and see if it slides right in. Otherwise, if you're going to a piercer, I would wait a couple more weeks. 6 to 8 weeks is the minimum I tell people for stretching.
Bugs Are So Cool says, hey, Scott, I believe my bridge piercing may have been pierced in a place with cystic acne without realizing. Okay. This causes pus to come out every few months. Is this something you've heard of?
No, it's not something I've heard of, but I'm not surprised. The body does a lot of strange things, and if you're going through that area, it might be. I'm curious, how long have you had your piercing? Is it because if it happens once in a while, you've had it for years, and it generally doesn't cause a problem, or is this a newer thing?
Right. Is it only a year old? And every couple months?
Have been able to heal it up, or So if you healed it up, let me know. How long have you had it? And thanks for tuning in. No, I'm not familiar with this one.
Awesome. Breadstick says thanks, and Kieran says he sent us that video, so we'll get that all prepped up and ready so we can show that next stream. That'll be great. Setho F says, hi, Scott. I got a nose pierced 10 years ago, but infected because of a piercing gun. I still have a bump inside my nose that'll sometimes bleed if I touch it too harshly. Any advice?
It could be the jewelry you're wearing.
Well, this is a healed piercing. I think
I know, but if there's something on the inside of the jewelry where there's a nick or a burr or something that could be scratching or irritating, that would be causing the bump. The other thing is when piercing guns go on, like on cartilage piercings, they always cause a bump on the back of the ear. The reason why is that piercing gun, it has this like little slot where it slides on, and a lot of times it distorts and pushes tissue off to the side. That's why it's not the optimum thing to get pierced. One of the reasons why it's not the optimum thing to get pierced with. So if they distorted your tissue, did the piercing, there's going to be that permanent bump on there that won't ever really go away. That would be my second guess.
Okay. Now, anything you can do about that, or
not really?
It's just
10 years. It's there.
It's just how things are working. Bat Dad Singo says, Jared, I just heard you say you're from Pennsylvania. I live in northwestern PA myself. Small world. It is a small world. You probably know where Corey is then. That's where I'm from. Because northwestern PA is so small that
everyone knows everyone. Yeah.
Anna Carpuck says, hey, Scott, I got a nostril done a few days ago, but it fell out while I was asleep. It turns out my piercer gave me the bone-style stud. What should I do?
Find another piercer. Yeah, the bone-style studs are terrible. If it's a threadless one, I've seen them come out where they don't put them in too tight, but the nose bones are typically not done by most piercers. So find someone who's going to put in the proper piece of jewelry for you. You're going to have to let it close up. These things close up within minutes. I'm sure you already know that. Once the redness and swelling's gone down, you're probably able to go get it pierced again. Probably a couple weeks before you get it re-pierced. But maybe look into another piercer if they put in the nose bone.
Daniela has a question. It's actually very important to know where the line is. Hi, Scott from the Dominican Republic.
Hi.
At what point do you recommend to remove the piercing or to go to a doctor? So where's the line? Where is something too messed up and we should really see a doctor?
Okay. Now, if you truly believe it's infected, you have pus coming out of there, it's radiating heat, it really hurts, it's infected, go see your doctor. Straight up. Okay. Now, if you just have a bump doesn't mean infection, it means irritation. And a doctor's not going to be able to do anything for you. They're just going to say, take the piercing out, which gets rid of the irritation, and the bump goes away.
They're right.
So they're right and jerks at the same time. And then as far as like not sure if it's irritated or infected, doing the hot water soaks, give it a day or so, and if it seems like it's getting worse, go see the doctor. If you're doing a soak and you're doing everything right and it seems like it's getting better, then I would say just, if it's getting better, your body's healing it up. But if there's a concern for true infection, see your doctor.
No reason to mess around with something like that.
No, there isn't. There's a difference between bumps and infections, and if you look up true infections, you would know. They're pretty bad.
All right. 3Tech wants to know what you think about titanium tunnels.
I personally am not a huge fan of tunnel Okay, let's go to the drawing board here. Can we do this, Jared?
To the board.
Okay, so now what we're talking about here is a tunnel where it's basically, this is called a flesh tunnel, okay, where it looks like there's threads on this end right here, or it can be internally threaded and it threads into the post. But they're a screw-in type post where it's all made out of titanium, but these don't give a lot of room for swelling, and I've had these almost get stuck screwed in before. I don't know if it was a little cheaper jewelry or what, but I wore some in my nostrils and I thought I had to wear it forever.
Oh, because you couldn't get it on.
So I'm not a fan of them anymore. Some people wear them in earlobes and it's not that big of a deal. I haven't seen a lot of quality flesh tunnels this way. Now, the other option here, what you might be talking about, is just a single flare tunnel where it has like a little O-ring on the one side, or it's a double flared like so, where you just have to be overstretched, and then this is the wearing surface right in the middle. So these two designs I think are great. This I'm a little sketchy on.
Just didn't work out for you.
Yep.
Jane Horace says, hey, Scott, I'm looking to become a body piercer in the future. Do you know where I can get a Bloodborne Pathogen class in Vegas?
I would say, no, I don't. I've done all online ones here in Vegas because I've taken so many physical Bloodborne Pathogen courses through the APP, through the cities and things like that. Now I just go to the online ones, and they're short, quick, easy ones.
Now, the APP is going to be in town, right? If you're local to Vegas, can't you just take the APP Bloodborne Pathogens course here in a couple months?
You might be able to. I don't know. I know a lot of times it's very industry specific, and you almost have to have an apprenticeship or
before you can even take the class
to get into the classes and stuff. You have to be affiliated with a shop, but you might be able to go online and take their online course, which will be far more thorough than
someone else's random course, because the APP's online course will be specific to piercing.
Correct, and it'll be good.
All right. Yeah. So hopefully that sends you in the correct direction, Jane. Foggy wants to know how scar tissue affects healing. I got my second lobes pierced again, and it feels like they're healing a lot slower and get irritated easier than the first time. Is there anything that can help?
Normally I find that scar tissue heals a little faster. There's a little bit more blood flow to the area for some reason, and I don't know. I've had pretty good luck with scar tissue healing up, as long as all the scar. If you had growths growing out of the side of your piercing and you pierce through that scar tissue, that's bad. But if you just saw the old initial dots, it should be healing up pretty normal. Piercings are piercings. Every situation's different.
Ray Pinned just got a navel pierced a week ago, and it hurts when they move or when they sit down. Is that normal, or is it irritated?
Well, it's obviously irritated if it hurts. Keep your piercing clean. Keep the crusties off there. Sometimes when we bend, we get this little fold in our belly, and the piercing can kind of fold in. Also, high-waisted pants are super popular. So if your pants are rubbing right up against it, that's probably the biggest issue. It's going to take a full year if your pants are rubbing up against it the whole time. So,
Green Tea has a question that's more specific to being a piercer, but I think it's kind of interesting to all of us. How do you balance speed and precision when piercing? Thanks so much for your content. It's fantastic.
That's a really good question. It's a tough one to answer. As time goes on, you get more speed. Because when I first start, I thought I had to go as fast as possible, but then you get crooked piercings. So what you do is you just it's more about being smooth than fast. Okay. Now, once you got a nice smooth piercing, the more you do, the faster they get, and that speed comes with the precision. Once you do something 1,000 times, it's obviously going to get fast. I get customers saying all the time, like, wow, that was so fast. And I always make the joke, like, no one wants a slow piercing, haha. Right. But I was like, I don't realize how fast I go, but I've been doing this since 1994. So it's just time.
And it's interesting. There's a parallel to that. Like, I do martial arts, and one of the sayings that I've heard in that is that slow is smooth and that smooth is fast. So if you practice something slow, you'll eventually be so smooth that it gets super fast again. Mm-hmm. But if you try to practice doing something fast, you'll just do it sloppy.
Okay. And then my other thing I want to say is, number one, get a high-quality needle. Oh, my God, this is going to make things so much smoother, because when you have a low-quality needle, you push, it stops, and you have to work at it. The needles I use, I don't work. It just goes.
And that's a little more expensive, but it's worth that price to give a better piercing.
It's so worth the price. It takes the pain away. It's a faster, smoother. And you know what? You might have spent a little bit more on that needle, but that customer's coming back to you because that person down the block didn't use that, and theirs hurt way more. Like, wow, yours didn't hurt at all. Yeah, quality materials makes a huge difference. Quality materials makes you smoother, which makes you faster.
I bet people don't even think about that. They wouldn't think that different piercers literally use different needles, and that the quality of the piercer is more than just the person's skill, but like how much are they willing to spend on the materials?
I've done the research. I've ordered every brand of needle I can find, every single one of them. And I'll put out a video, and I'll show you that video. But it's unbelievable, the difference. Looking under the microscope, the feel of each needle when you pierce with it, it's like, yeah, I'm not using that needle again.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
More of a difference than people think.
Good question.
Laura says, hi, Scott. I got my nostril pierced about 8 weeks ago. I've been doing all the proper aftercare, but I still have a constant bump. It goes down a lot after a shower and each saline soak, but then the bump comes back.
Okay.
Any advice?
If you have a nostril screw in there where it's like the little corkscrew twist on the inside, your jewelry might need to be readjusted if it's too long and it's moving back and forth. If you got a ring in your nose, I'm not surprised that you have a little bump in there because rings always cause a bump. You should always get pierced with a stud. And then the last thing is if you're catching towels and things like that on a regular basis, that's your irritant. Once you stop doing that, that bump should go away. It is technically healing. Bumps happen all the time on nostrils. It sucks when it happens. But be patient. It will go away.
Gabe Gaming says, hey, Scott, love your videos. Have you ever thought about making a video on the genital piercing, the dolphin?
Yes, that is actually on our list. It's an extremely rare piercing. I'll let you know, like for those of you who wonder what a dolphin is, it sounds fantastic. It's a Prince Albert piercing where you have the hole on the bottom of the penis, but then that's stretched out large enough where you can put the receiving tube in again and do another Prince Albert in a way lower. So you have a curved barbell going in and out of the bottom of the urethra, the bottom side of the penis. Pretty intense. Yeah, I'll make a video on it.
All right, so that one is coming, Gabe. Lisa says, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks.
Willard Del Toro says, hi, I got an orbital cartilage piercing 2 weeks ago, and it's healing pretty well.
Good.
It's healing a lot better than my conch in the same ear from a month ago, and we're getting another orbital next month. Is that sometimes the case?
No, that's not the case. You got a fantastic piercing if you're healing that orbital up better than the conch. Congratulations. That's super cool.
Livy wants to know if vertical librettes and medusas leave noticeable scars.
Yes.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Just
straight
that
up.
simple.
Every person scars differently, but I mean, expect something. This is your upper lip. I mean, so you're going to see something there. Generally, you don't see much of a scar on the bottom. Sometimes you see a little discoloration, but where it's the normal skin and not the lip tone, that's where you see the bigger scars.
Ashton the Great wants to know the healing time on snakebite piercings.
Okay. Generally about 2 to 3 months for snake bites. You're looking at your lip piercings, you oversize the bars, and then you shorten them up, and you should be done in about 2 to 3 months.
Caitlin Cartlarnd wants to know, how long do you think you could have a smiley before the damage is caused to your teeth? Is that a time thing?
Every person's different, depends on your anatomy. It could be as little as a couple of weeks. It could be a couple of years. Depends on the jewelry you're wearing. You could have it for a couple of years and change your jewelry, and that jewelry does all the damage in a matter of a couple of days. So it really depends, and it's situational. It's kind of a gamble on that piercing. If you wear the right jewelry and you find the right stuff, they're great, but they do cause a lot of problems too.
All right. Mumu says, hi, greetings from the UK.
Hi.
I watch you every day. Fantastic channel every day. Got my ears pierced to a 00. Hurt like hell, but I love them. And I know you don't like it, but I'm getting a dermal.
Okay, cool. Congratulations.
That's fun. He's not too mad at you, Mumu.
No,
He forgives you.
I'm not a fan of them for myself. Other people, if you want to get it, go for it. Yeah.
All right. Missoon Tomi says, I have been watching you for almost a year now, and you've helped me be more confident in making decisions about my piercings. Thank you. I got a nostril because of you.
Congratulations, and thank you so much for being part of our community and watching my channel. I really, really do appreciate each and every one of you.
So with a pierced smiley, if the jewelry kept moving so much, what's the proper size of jewelry that is generally used in a smiley?
Typically, when I do the initial piercing, I'm going to start people off with a 5/16 of an inch or a 3/8 of an inch, because you don't want it to hang too far down or rub up against the teeth. It's just, I look at the person and I have them smile as big as possible, and I see where their web is and how far. Like when you smile big, that's when I want it to show. Otherwise,
you want it to not show.
I want it to not show. That's the way I do my placement. But
and is that at a 16? What gauge goes
normally I do
through?
16 gauge, and then I encourage people to maybe even go smaller, down to like an 18 gauge, and a smaller ring, like a clicker where there's no beads or irritation things.
So that way it's not going to mess with your teeth. Perfect. So we're just we appreciate everyone sending in all these questions, but we are almost out of time. So we're just going to ask a few more questions. Are there a lot of options for stretched earlobes at smaller gauges, like 8 or 9 millimeters?
A lot of options as far as jewelry goes?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a ton of options. You're going to have wood, horn, bone, steel, titanium, glass. There's going to be certain metal ones too, where you do hangers. There's a zillion different options. The bigger you go, the more details, the more ornate they can get. But yeah, you still have a ton of options.
Ashlyn Go has a question about a tragus piercing.
Sure.
Love your channel. It's been a really big help. So we got the tragus piercing about a month ago, but it's really hard to get the crusties out of the inside. You know what I mean? Because your ear hole's pretty small, the tragus is kind of small. What do you recommend for getting those crusties out of there?
The best thing I can say is, like, right after a shower, there's actually the steam and the soaking and whatnot should soften those up a little bit. You can always take that wound wash spray and spray it in there. And once they soften up, you should be able to take a paper towel, roll it up to a point, and use that like you would use a Q-tip to wipe off those crusties. Q-tips leave the cotton fibers, so that's why the paper towel rolled to the point works the best. Once you've soaked it, and if that doesn't work, straight up soak your ear in some warm water, and that'll soften up those crusties. It's the soak is what softens them up.
And last up, we'll take a question from Yo. Hey, Scott, I'm looking forward to getting a Smiley piercing soon, but I'm also getting braces as well. Would it be possible to get the Smiley before or after the braces? What issues might be? Is the dentist going to be okay with that?
No, the dentist is not going to be okay. It's going to completely get in the way. With your braces, I'm guessing they're going to get caught up in that ring. I would wait till after your braces to get the Smiley piercing. Okay? Now, if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Tell all your friends about me. Make sure you hit the like. And, of course, see y'all in the next video. Oh, yeah, wait, try that again. And keep putting holes in your body. We'll see y'all in the next video.
It's all right. We'll just edit that out later.
Wow, yeah, we'll just edit it. It's not live or anything.